In an age oversaturated with information, opinions, and instant judgments, the quest for genuine understanding and wisdom has never been more pressing. The modern world, with its relentless pace and unyielding focus on surface-level engagement, has paradoxically distanced individuals from the time-honored art of deep thinking. Yet when one looks back into history for guidance on thoughtful inquiry, few figures loom as profoundly as Socrates, the classical Greek philosopher, whose legacy continues to influence intellectual discourse millennia after his death. Socrates did not leave behind written treatises or elaborate systems of thought. Instead, his philosophy survives through dialogues and teachings that reveal a method of inquiry, relentless questioning, rigorous self-examination, and unwavering pursuit of truth. If we aspire to deepen our understanding of ourselves, the world, and the values that direct our lives, we must first learn to think like Socrates. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button to support the channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an audiobook that could change your life. Now let's begin. Enjoy. Chapter 1. The Socratic Legacy. Why Deep Thinking Matters. Socrates stands as an enduring symbol of intellectual courage and inquiry. His legacy is not one of static doctrines, but of a dynamic approach that places deep thinking at its very core. To understand why deep thinking matters, we must first examine the context in which Socrates operated and the values he espoused, values that remain astonishingly pertinent. In 5th century Athens, Socrates confronted a society marked by certainty and convention. The city thrived on rhetoric, commerce, and tradition, and yet, within this sophisticated culture, Socrates saw a profound absence: the willingness to question, to look beneath the surface, and to seek authentic understanding. He famously declared, "The unexamined life is not worth living," a proclamation that challenges every individual to probe beneath the subtleties of daily existence. Socrates did not claim mastery over knowledge. Rather, he embraced ignorance as the starting point for inquiry. He would confront citizens, politicians, and experts, engaging them in dialectical exchanges that revealed the limitations of their understanding. These dialogues did not serve to humiliate, but to illuminate, exposing the unstable foundations upon which their opinions rested. The Socratic Method, as later thinkers described it, became a powerful tool for dissecting beliefs, fostering humility, and propelling the search for wisdom. Deep thinking, in the Socratic sense, involves more than logical analysis. It entails a commitment to self-examination and an openness to revisiting even our most cherished beliefs. In an era inundated with unchecked assertions, memes, and instantaneous conclusions, Socrates' emphasis on reflective skepticism becomes a vital antidote to intellectual complacency. The mastery of deep thinking equips us to resist herd mentality, challenge inherited assumptions, and forge a path toward genuine understanding. Why does deep thinking matter in today's landscape? The answer lies in its transformative capacity. It empowers individuals to make decisions rooted not in impulse or popularity, but in reasoned deliberation. It nurtures intellectual resilience and shields the mind from manipulation. Moreover, it serves as the bedrock for personal growth. The more rigorously we scrutinize our convictions, the closer we approach genuine wisdom. Socrates taught that truth is neither simple nor immediate. It must be sought diligently and often lies buried beneath layers of misconception. Deep thinking, therefore, is not merely an academic exercise, but an existential imperative. It is the quality that distinguishes those who drift through life from those who live purposefully, conscious of their values and place in the world. In this chapter, we explore the origins of the Socratic legacy and its enduring relevance. We examine the essential qualities of Socratic inquiry: humility, curiosity, and the relentless pursuit of clarity. By understanding why deep thinking matters, we lay the foundation for a lifelong engagement with wisdom, a quest that begins with the simple but profound act of questioning everything. Chapter 2, Know Thyself, the Foundation of Wisdom. Among the various aphorisms attributed to Socrates and the Delphic oracle, Know Thyself stands the test of time as a cornerstone of philosophical wisdom. This principle lies at the heart of Socratic inquiry. To master the art of deep thinking, one must first turn inward, engaging in the rigorous process of self-examination. Socrates believed that true wisdom was born not from external knowledge, but from self-knowledge. The individual who understands their own motivations, desires, biases, and limitations is uniquely equipped to approach the world with clarity. This process is neither simple nor comfortable. It requires the willingness to confront the complexities of one's nature, including the darker recesses of thought, which are often hidden from casual introspection. To know thyself is to recognize both strength and frailty. Socrates demonstrated this through constant questioning, not only of others, but of himself. He understood that the most dangerous form of ignorance is self-deception, and that unchecked assumptions about one's own character can lead to misjudgment, misconception, and moral error. The journey to self-knowledge begins with honest reflection. One must cultivate mindfulness, observing the patterns of thought and emotion that shape their actions. This not only involves exploring conscious beliefs, but also acknowledging unconscious influences. Socrates advocated for continual dialogue, not as mere discourse, but as a vehicle for revealing the subtleties of the mind. Through conversation, individuals are forced to articulate and justify their beliefs, exposing inconsistencies and areas of confusion. Furthermore, Socratic self-inquiry extends beyond the intellectual realm. It encompasses ethical and emotional dimensions as well. To know oneself is to understand one's values, capacities for empathy, and the moral compass that guides decision-making. In the absence of such understanding, individuals risk living inauthentically, governed by the expectations and pressures of society rather than personal conviction. In practical terms, the cultivation of self-knowledge is an ongoing process. It involves journaling, dialogue, meditation, and the persistent questioning of motives and desires. Socrates himself was famed for his humility, his readiness to admit ignorance, and his perseverance in examining his own views. This humility serves as a shield against arrogance and opens the mind to new insights. The foundation of wisdom is steeped in the recognition that perfection is unattainable, but improvement is always possible. The daily practice of knowing oneself is an act of courage and discipline, inviting deeper levels of awareness and understanding. For Socrates, those who neglect this integral process are liable to, in his words, lead lives that are not truly their own. Thus, self-knowledge stands not only as a philosophical ideal, but as a practical necessity for anyone who aspires to think deeply and live authentically. Chapter 3, The Art of Questioning, Challenging Assumptions. Central to Socratic practice is the art of questioning. Socrates was as much an interrogator as a philosopher, renowned for his relentless pursuit of clarity through dialogue. He recognized that most individuals cling to assumptions, beliefs inherited from family, culture, or personal experience, without ever examining their validity. Socratic questioning is a disciplined process. It goes beyond mere curiosity. It seeks to disassemble the structures of thought to reveal what lies beneath. The method is deceptively simple. Ask a question, receive an answer, challenge the answer with a deeper question, and continue this process until the underlying premises are exposed. The aim is not to score rhetorical points, but to illuminate the foundations of belief. Why is challenging assumptions so critical to deep thinking? Unexamined beliefs appear self-evident, yet these are often the source of error and misunderstanding. Socrates would often encounter experts who espoused confident opinions, only to find that their knowledge rested on shaky ground. By systematically questioning their beliefs, he revealed contradictions and ambiguities, encouraging his interlocutors to reconsider their positions. The art of questioning requires skill and tact. A poorly framed question can evoke defensiveness, while a thoughtful inquiry can stimulate genuine reflection. Socrates employed techniques such as feigned ignorance, Socratic irony, leading questions and analogies to propel conversations into deeper territory. His dialogues, preserved by Plato, illustrate the power of probing, open-ended questions that invite others to participate in the discovery of truth. Moreover, questioning challenges intellectual comfort zones. Individuals are often reluctant to scrutinize cherished beliefs, fearing uncertainty or social reproach. However, as Socrates argued, the willingness to question is the pathway to growth. Intellectual courage is built not through the accumulation of facts, but through the relentless pursuit of understanding, even when that pursuit undermines one's prior convictions. The process of Socratic questioning has important applications beyond philosophy. In science, politics, education, and daily life, the ability to challenge assumptions fosters innovation and ethical decision-making. Leaders who cultivate this skill avoid the pitfalls of groupthink and dogmatism. Students who engage in Socratic dialogue become critical, adaptable thinkers. To master the art of questioning is to embrace uncertainty as a source of strength. Every assumption should be weighed, tested, and if necessary, discarded in favor of clearer insights. Socratic questioning is not about eroding confidence, but about building it on solid foundations. For those who dare to challenge assumptions, the reward is a mind liberated from bias and a vision unclouded by presumption. Chapter 4. Ignorance as Strength, Embracing What You Don't Know. In stark contrast to the prevailing values of ancient Athens, Socrates regarded ignorance not as a failing, but as a sign of intellectual honesty and strength. His famous declaration, "I know that I am intelligent because I know that I know nothing," reveals the paradoxical wisdom at the heart of his philosophy. To master deep thinking, one must cultivate a nuanced relationship with ignorance. Ignorance, for Socrates, is the admission of limitations. It is the recognition that knowledge is always partial and that certainty is often illusory. This perspective stands as a bulwark against arrogance. The individual who acknowledges ignorance is uniquely poised to learn, whereas those who claim perfect understanding are closed to further growth. Embracing ignorance is both a moral and intellectual act. Socrates demonstrated this in his dialogues, where he assumed the role of a humble inquirer rather than a didactic authority. He invited others to challenge his views, exposed his own doubts, and refrained from offering definitive answers. This humility fostered an environment in which genuine learning could take place. The strength of ignorance lies in its capacity to engender curiosity. When we admit what we do not know, we open ourselves to exploration, experimentation, and revision. Socratic ignorance is productive because it supplies the motivation necessary for inquiry. It is not mere passivity, but an active engagement with the unknown, signaling the readiness to pursue truth wherever it may lead. In contemporary society, the cult of expertise often discourages such humility. The pressure to project certainty, to offer swift solutions, or to dominate debates leads to superficial discussion and intellectual stasis. Socrates' alternative is radical: to suspend judgment, to question confidently held positions, and to remain in a state of perpetual learning. To embrace ignorance is not to revel in confusion, but to celebrate the process of learning. Socratic philosophy frames ignorance as the wellspring from which wisdom flows. Every question, every dialogue, and every insight is conditioned by the recognition that there remains more to discover. This has profound ethical implications as well. Individuals who admit ignorance are less prone to dogmatism and more willing to seek out diverse perspectives. In practice, cultivating Socratic ignorance demands vigilance. It requires the suppression of pride, the restraint of premature judgment, and the fostering of curiosity. Those who succeed in this endeavor unlock a powerful form of resilience, capable of adapting to new information and revising beliefs in light of compelling evidence. The art of deep thinking, therefore, is inseparable from the humility of ignorance. It is through this admission of unknowing that we begin the journey toward insight, transforming weakness into strength and confusion into wisdom. Socratic ignorance is not a remnant of naivety, but the signature of a mind forever attuned to the possibilities of understanding. Chapter 5. Truth through dialogue, the power of conversation. Socrates' approach to philosophy was uniquely dialogical. He believed that truth emerges not in isolation, but through conversation, dynamic, challenging, and collaborative. His legacy rests upon his artful engagement with others, illuminating the power of dialogue as a tool for deep thinking. Dialogues serve as platforms for testing ideas, examining beliefs, and discovering new perspectives. Socrates did not operate as a remote sage, but as a participant, inviting others into the process of inquiry. Through carefully structured conversations, he revealed inconsistencies, guided interlocutors toward clarity, and fostered an atmosphere of intellectual rigor. The power of Socratic dialogue lies in its openness. Participants must be prepared to listen, not merely to defend their positions. Genuine conversation demands humility and flexibility. It challenges individuals to articulate their beliefs, respond to critique, and revise their views as new evidence emerges. Central to this practice is the notion of dialectic, the interplay of opposing arguments. Socrates advanced his dialogues by juxtaposing conflicting positions, pushing each party to uncover assumptions and refine their thinking. This process does not guarantee consensus. Rather, it sharpens insight and reveals the nuances of complex issues. In deep thinking, dialogue serves as a crucible. The friction of competing ideas generates sparks of revelation, forcing participants to confront ambiguities and uncertainties. Socratic dialogue is not combative, but collaborative. Its purpose is to seek truth wherever it may reside, even if that means overturning cherished convictions. In the contemporary world, the power of dialogue remains indispensable. Political polarization, cultural division, and ideological echo chambers threaten the possibility of genuine understanding. Socratic dialogue offers an alternative, a commitment to reasoned discourse, mutual respect, and open inquiry. Practicing truth through dialogue involves developing key skills: active listening, thoughtful questioning, and empathetic engagement. It requires a willingness to pause, reflect, and thoughtfully respond rather than react. By mastering these skills, individuals can transform conversations from battlegrounds to laboratories of thought. Furthermore, Socratic dialogue has ethical implications. It fosters empathy, tolerance, and intellectual humility. It enables individuals to see the world through others' eyes, reducing the risk of dogmatism and prejudice. The power of conversation, therefore, extends beyond intellectual gains to encompass social and moral development. In summary, Socrates teaches that dialogue is the pathway to truth. It is through the exchange of ideas, the challenging of assumptions, and the willingness to revise beliefs that wisdom is cultivated. By embracing the power of conversation, deep thinkers become architects of insight, builders of understanding, and champions of reasoned discourse. Chapter 6. Logic and Reason, Tools of the Rational Mind. The reliability of deep thinking rests on the foundation of logic and reason. Socrates was a master of dialectical reasoning, using systematic argumentation to expose contradictions, clarify concepts, and seek truth. For those striving to think deeply, the cultivation of logic and reason is not optional. It is the indispensable tool set of the rational mind. Logic, in its most basic sense, is the discipline of valid inference. It involves recognizing patterns, scrutinizing arguments, and drawing conclusions that reliably follow from established premises. Socrates, by questioning definitions and seeking logical consistency, elevated philosophy from idle speculation to disciplined analysis. Reason, as Socrates understood it, extends beyond mere calculation. It is the faculty that enables individuals to weigh evidence, compare alternatives, and make sense of complex phenomena. Reason underpins ethical inquiry, scientific investigation, and everyday decision-making alike. The Socratic Method exemplifies reasoned discourse. Socrates would dissect statements, challenge inconsistencies, and require his interlocutors to defend their positions with logical precision. This process revealed not only the strengths of arguments, but also their vulnerabilities. In deep thinking, the tools of logic and reason serve multiple purposes. They protect the mind against deception and fallacy. They illuminate ambiguities, enabling a clearer distinction between truth and falsehood. They foster intellectual autonomy, cultivating the capacity to think for oneself, even in the face of social pressure or persuasive rhetoric. Mastery of logic involves recognizing common fallacies, such as ad hominem attacks, false dilemmas, and slippery slopes. Socrates, through rigorous questioning, prevented intellectual shortcuts, compelling himself and others to adhere to strict standards of validity and consistency. Reason, meanwhile, empowers individuals to navigate uncertainty. It encourages the synthesis of information, the weighing of probabilities, and the construction of coherent worldviews. Socratic reason is dynamic, open to revision, and fundamentally skeptical of easy answers. To foster logic and reason, students of Socratic thought must practice analyzing arguments, identifying premises and conclusions, and scrutinizing evidence. They must be willing to suspend judgment, to follow the argument wherever it leads, and to modify their beliefs accordingly. Through the disciplined use of logic and reason, deep thinkers cultivate minds that are both resilient and flexible. They become equipped to tackle complex problems, negotiate ethical dilemmas, and discern truth amid conflicting claims. Socrates models not a rigid dogmatism, but a passionate commitment to rational inquiry. By mastering the tools of the rational mind, individuals gain the power to engage meaningfully with the world, defend their beliefs, and pursue wisdom in all aspects of life. Chapter 7. The Dangers of Opinion, Thinking Beyond the Crowd. Throughout his life, Socrates warned against the dangers of following opinion uncritically. He observed that many individuals, rather than thinking deeply for themselves, simply absorb popular views, surrendering their autonomy to the dictates of the crowd. In his dialogues, Socrates relentlessly challenged public consensus, urging his interlocutors to examine the foundations of their beliefs. Opinion, as Socrates saw it, is frequently unreliable. It is shaped by emotion, social pressure, and the allure of conformity. When individuals abandon critical scrutiny in favor of expediency, they become vulnerable to error, manipulation, and ethical compromise. The dangers of opinion are not confined to intellectual error. They extend into the realm of moral peril. Relying on the crowd's judgment often leads individuals to support injustice, overlook nuance, and perpetuate harmful traditions. Socratic philosophy demands independence, an allegiance to reason rather than popularity. Thinking beyond the crowd requires both courage and discipline. Socrates exemplified this quality, enduring ridicule, ostracism, and ultimately death for his refusal to submit to conventional opinion. His life stands as a testament to the virtues of intellectual autonomy and the responsibilities it entails. The process of transcending opinion involves examining one's sources of belief, questioning media narratives, and remaining alert to the influence of group dynamics. It requires the cultivation of skepticism, the willingness to stand apart, and the strength to defend unpopular but reasoned conclusions. Socratic thinkers practice intellectual resilience. They value dialogue, seek evidence, and test every viewpoint against standards of logic and ethical reasoning. They are not immune to error, but they refuse to trade independent thought for social acceptance. In contemporary society, the dangers of unchecked opinion are magnified by technology, social media, and rapid information exchange. The urge to align with popular sentiment is strong. The risks of dissent can be serious. Nonetheless, Socratic deep thinkers commit themselves to the integrity of reasoned inquiry. By thinking beyond the crowd, individuals develop a capacity for authentic judgment. They recognize that truth is often uncomfortable, unpopular, or counterintuitive. Socratic philosophy empowers them to seek clarity, resist manipulation, and act in accordance with reason. Even in the face of formidable opposition, the dangers of opinion cannot be eliminated, but they can be managed. Through vigilance, dialogue, and self-examination, deep thinkers cultivate minds that are both independent and principled. Socrates' example speaks urgently to us. Wisdom, courage, and resilience are won by those who dare to think beyond the crowd. Chapter 8. Moral Inquiry. Seeking the good and the just. The Socratic tradition begins with a question: what is the good? What is justice? These are not simply theoretical abstractions, but central concerns that undergird every facet of human life. To Socrates, moral inquiry was both a personal and communal responsibility. He understood that the quality of a society depended not merely on its laws, but on the virtue of its citizens, and that virtue itself needed to be interrogated, defined, and understood through persistent questioning. Socrates approached moral questions with an unrivaled intensity. The streets of Athens became his classroom, and its citizens his fellow seekers. Rather than lecturing, Socrates preferred dialogue, inviting others to examine their beliefs about virtue, justice, and goodness. Through a process known as elenchus, or the Socratic Method, he dismantled superficial answers, exposing inconsistencies and forcing participants to reconsider their assumptions. The first step in Socratic moral inquiry is to recognize the complexity of ethical concepts. Words such as goodness, justice, and virtue may appear simple, yet their meanings shift across contexts and cultures. This ambiguity is not a weakness, but an invitation to deeper investigation. Socrates insisted that true moral understanding arises not from inherited convention, but from rigorous examination of one's beliefs and motives. Consider the question: what does it mean to act justly? Socrates might begin by asking for examples of just actions, then discern whether these actions share a common feature. Is justice merely adherence to law, or does it demand something more? Through persistent questioning, Socratic inquiry reveals that law and morality often diverge, prompting the individual to seek principles enduring beyond transient statutes. Central to Socratic inquiry is the distinction between knowing and believing. Socrates famously asserted, "I know that I know nothing," emphasizing the danger of presumed knowledge. In moral inquiry, this humility fosters openness. One must be willing to challenge even the most cherished convictions, recognizing that persistent self-deception lies at the heart of moral stagnation. The process of Socratic questioning is not merely intellectual, it is transformative. The relentless pursuit of the good and the just, though often disruptive, refines the soul, forging wisdom from the friction of doubt. In Socratic dialogue, participants become co-seekers, united in the shared quest for clarity. Socratic moral inquiry also extends to action. Socrates believed that knowledge and virtue are intimately connected. To know the good is to be compelled toward it. Thus, the examination of what is good and just is not simply academic, but guides one's choices and behaviors. This conviction prompted Socrates to stand by his principles even in the face of condemnation, refusing to abdicate his moral duties for personal safety. In contemporary terms, Socratic moral inquiry challenges us to scrutinize our ethical beliefs, test our motives, and interrogate the values of our society. Whether considering issues of justice in governance, equity in relationships, or personal integrity, the Socratic tradition demands persistent questioning, dialogue, and critical self-examination. To practice Socratic moral inquiry, cultivate habits of questioning. Ask, why do I consider this action good or just? What evidence supports my belief? Engage in dialogue with others. Test your ideas against counter-argument, always seeking greater precision and coherence. Reflect on the possibility of error. Consider how your upbringing, environment, or emotions may have shaped your beliefs. Commit to action aligned with reason. Let your understanding of the good and the just guide your choices, even when they challenge comfort or convenience. Through these practices, you begin the journey at the heart of Socratic philosophy, seeking not easy certainty, but enduring wisdom in the realm of moral inquiry. Chapter 9, Intellectual Humility, the Path to True Understanding. Socratic thinking is grounded in the virtue of intellectual humility, a quality both radical and rare. To possess intellectual humility is to acknowledge the limits of one's own knowledge and to remain open to learning from every encounter. Socrates demonstrated this virtue not only in his famous admission of ignorance, but in the way he approached each conversation as a genuine opportunity to uncover truth. Why is intellectual humility so essential to deep thinking? Because the human mind is prone to error, bias, and self-deception. Our beliefs, particularly those most cherished, often rest on questionable foundations. The Socratic tradition recognizes that certainty can be an obstacle to understanding, locking the mind in patterns of defensiveness and unexamined assumptions. To walk the path to true understanding, one must first recognize the barriers. Pride, ego, and the comfort of certainty are formidable obstacles to genuine inquiry. Socrates confronted these barriers searchingly, often provoking discomfort in those he questioned. His dialogues reveal that intellectual humility is not passive acceptance, but an active stance, a willingness to challenge oneself, admit mistakes, and revise one's views. The development of intellectual humility requires deliberate practice. Ask yourself, am I willing to acknowledge gaps in my understanding? Do I actively seek out perspectives that challenge my own? Socrates modeled this openness by welcoming contradiction, seeing every objection as a pathway to refinement rather than defeat. Philosophical humility also demands the recognition of complexity. In the Socratic tradition, answers are rarely simple. The deeper one delves, the greater the intricacies revealed. True understanding emerges from embracing this complexity, refusing the lure of oversimplification. Socrates famously did not offer easy answers, preferring ambiguity to false certainty. This discomfort fosters growth, compelling the individual to probe ever more deeply. Moreover, intellectual humility is inseparable from dialogue. Socrates understood that wisdom arises not in isolation, but in conversation. By listening attentively and responding thoughtfully, one cultivates a mind attuned to nuance and subtlety. Socratic dialogue is not a contest of superiority, but a cooperative search for truth, requiring patience, empathy, and mutual respect. In today's world, intellectual humility is more crucial than ever. The information age tempts us with rapid judgments and superficial conclusions. Socratic thinking resists these impulses, inviting a slower, more considered approach. It encourages us to ask, what do I truly know, and what remains obscure? What perspectives have I neglected? Intellectual humility creates the conditions for growth, permitting the expansion of understanding. How can one cultivate intellectual humility practically? Practice self-examination. Routinely question your certainty and embrace the possibility of error. Seek dialogue with those who disagree, Striving to understand rather than defend, adopt a posture of curiosity, greeting novelty and contradiction as avenues for learning. Accept ambiguity, valuing questions as much as answers. Socratic intellectual humility enables the journey toward genuine wisdom, holding the mind in a state of creative tension between knowing and not knowing. This virtue, more than any other, allows the individual to move beyond superficial understanding and approach the deep waters of thought. Chapter 10. Observation and Reflection. Seeing beyond appearances. At the heart of Socratic thinking lies a dual commitment to observation and reflection. Socrates cautioned against being deceived by appearances, arguing that reality is seldom as simple as it superficially seems. Deep thinking in the Socratic tradition requires the cultivation of a keen eye and a contemplative mind, an ability to perceive subtlety, contradiction, and complexity where others see only the obvious. Observation is not merely passive reception, but active engagement. Socrates urged his interlocutors to examine not only their own beliefs, but the world that surrounded them. What is this thing that I behold? What lies beneath its surface? What causes it to be as it is? Through such questioning, Socrates modeled a way of seeing that pierced convention and revealed deeper truths. Reflection. The second half of this dual process involves turning inquiry inward. Having observed the world, the Socratic thinker asks, "What do I make of this? How does it resonate with my beliefs, my emotions, and my values?" Reflection transforms observation into understanding, integrating external phenomena with internal wisdom. To see beyond appearances, Socrates often employed analogies and thought experiments. In the Republic, for example, he uses the allegory of the cave to challenge readers' assumptions about reality and knowledge. Shadows on the wall are but mere reflections of a deeper, hidden truth, just as the opinions and beliefs we inherit may merely echo larger, underlying concepts. Observation and reflection together offer protection against error. By scrutinizing phenomena, the Socratic thinker avoids hasty judgments. By reflecting deeply, he questions not just what is seen, but how it ought to be interpreted. Socrates encouraged an attitude of curiosity and skepticism, never taking anything at face value. In practice, cultivating observation demands attention. Socrates did not merely glance at the world. He examined it, searching for inconsistencies and nuance. This attentiveness is the antidote to distraction, allowing the thinker to notice what others ignore and thereby uncover deeper layers of meaning. Reflection, meanwhile, demands honest self-appraisal. Socrates understood that bias and desire often cloud judgment, urging a process of critical self-examination. What do I hope to see? What fears or wishes color my perceptions? Through such inward questioning, the Socratic thinker begins to understand her own mind as well as the world. In contemporary life, observation and reflection are more challenging, yet more necessary than ever. The pace of modern existence threatens to erode both attention and contemplation. Socratic deep thinking offers a remedy, inviting us to slow down, observe keenly, and reflect deeply. To cultivate observation and reflection, dedicate time to careful examination of your surroundings. Notice patterns, contradictions, and subtleties. Regularly step back from your observations and ask, what do these things mean to me? Challenge yourself to interpret experiences from multiple perspectives. Seeking insight rather than judgment, record your reflections, creating a journal of your evolving thoughts and perceptions, seeing beyond appearances through the dual lens of observation and reflection enables the Socratic thinker to pierce the veil of superficiality and approach reality as it truly is. Chapter 11. Emotional control, thinking without distraction. Emotions are both the wellspring of human vitality and a formidable source of distraction. Socratic philosophy recognizes that the pursuit of deep thinking requires the discipline to master one's emotions. rather than being mastered by them. Emotional control, in this sense, is not the suppression or denial of feeling, but its thoughtful regulation, an alignment of passion with reason. Socrates observed that uncontrolled emotions cloud judgment, distort perception, and thwart the search for truth. Anger, fear, desire, and pride can entangle the mind, redirecting inquiry into the service of self-interest or defense. Thus, deep thinking necessitates the cultivation of emotional restraint so that reason may guide rather than be led. The Socratic method itself is a study in emotional control. Socrates was often confronted by hostility, ridicule, and misunderstanding, yet remained steadfastly composed. His dialogues demonstrate how patience, calmness, and equanimity transform even the most contentious debate into an opportunity for insight. Emotional control begins with awareness. The Socratic thinker is attuned to the ebb and flow of feeling, recognizing emotional currents as they arise. What am I feeling in this moment? How do these emotions shape my reactions and judgments? Such self-monitoring prevents impulsivity and enables reflective reasoning. Regulation, the second step, involves the conscious guidance of emotion. When anger flares, the Socratic thinker pauses, breathing deeply and reframing the situation from multiple angles. When fear or pride clouds perception, he challenges these feelings, seeking evidence and perspective. Socratic self-mastery is not a rejection of emotion, but its integration into a balanced approach to thought. Emotional control also facilitates dialogue. Socrates understood that heated argument seldom produces clarity. By remaining calm, listening attentively, and refusing to retaliate, the Socratic thinker models a standard of composure that invites others into more thoughtful conversation. This self-restraint is crucial for the practice of the Socratic method, transforming debate into shared inquiry. In the modern world, emotional distraction is particularly pervasive. Social media, rapid communication, and incessant stimulation all threaten to undermine emotional equanimity. The Socratic tradition offers a remedy, a commitment to personal discipline, reflection, and self-regulation. To cultivate emotional control, practice regular self-awareness exercises. Monitor your emotional state and its effect on your thinking. Develop strategies for regulation, deep breathing, reframing, and delay of reaction. Engage in dialogue with the spirit of composure, resisting the urge to defend or retaliate. Reflect on how your emotions inform and potentially distort your judgments. Through emotional control, the Socratic thinker creates the conditions for deep, undistracted inquiry. By guiding feeling with reason, he unlocks the potential for genuine insight and profound understanding. Chapter 12. The Discipline of Doubt, Testing Every Belief. Socratic philosophy is distinguished by its relentless commitment to doubt as a precursor to truth. The discipline of doubt is not cynicism or nihilism, but a systematic testing of every belief, refusing to accept any proposition, however cherished. Without rigorous examination, Socrates believed that the unexamined life is not worth living. This dictum reflects the possibility and the peril of uncritical acceptance. Beliefs, customs, and traditions, once inherited without scrutiny, become obstacles to genuine wisdom and ethical living. The Socratic thinker embraces doubt not as a threat, but as a tool for illumination. The process of Socratic doubt is meticulous. Each belief, no matter how foundational, is subjected to questioning. What is the evidence for this idea? What are its alternatives? What are its implications? Through such inquiry, Socrates exposed contradictions, ambiguities, and errors, laying the groundwork for a clearer understanding. Doubt, in this tradition, is closely allied with humility. Socrates recognized that certainty often conceals ignorance. By embracing uncertainty, the thinker opens the mind to new possibilities, preventing the calcification of dogma. The discipline of doubt is therefore an invitation to perpetual inquiry. Socratic doubt is also collaborative. Dialogue becomes a laboratory for testing ideas, with each participant contributing to the scrutiny of belief. Socrates modeled respectful skepticism, refusing to belittle opponents while insisting on the importance of critical examination. In the context of everyday life, the discipline of doubt safeguards against manipulation, prejudice, and complacency. It compels the thinker to resist the allure of easy answers and to challenge assumptions that have gone unchecked. Deep thinking thereby becomes a bulwark against error and illusion. To practice the discipline of doubt, routinely question even your most fundamental beliefs. Seek evidence and consider alternative viewpoints before reaching conclusions. Engage in dialogue with those who hold different perspectives, seeking challenge rather than comfort. Welcome uncertainty as a sign of intellectual integrity, not weakness. By cultivating the discipline of doubt, the Socratic thinker fashions a mind equal to the rigors of deep philosophical inquiry. Doubt is transformed from an obstacle to an ally, clearing the path toward genuine wisdom. Chapter 13. Ethical Living, Applying Philosophy to Daily Life. For Socrates, philosophy was never a mere academic exercise. It was the blueprint for ethical living. Socratic deep thinking compels the individual not only to discern what is true, but to live in accordance with that truth. Ethical living, in the Socratic tradition, demands the integration of moral inquiry and philosophical understanding into every aspect of daily existence. Socrates modeled this integration in his own life, choosing poverty over comfort, honesty over popularity, and principle over self-interest. His dialogues challenge readers to ask not only what they believe, but how their beliefs inform their actions. The distinction between knowing and doing for Socrates was ultimately illusory. The truly wise person is inexorably drawn toward virtue. Applying philosophy to daily life requires persistent self-examination. Each choice, each action becomes an occasion for Socratic inquiry. Is this decision aligned with justice, goodness, and reason? What are its consequences for self and others? Through such questioning, ethical living emerges not as the adherence to abstract principles, but as a commitment to integrity in practice. Socratic philosophy also encourages courage. Ethical living often demands the resistance of pressure, ridicule, or temptation. Socrates himself faced condemnation rather than betraying his principles, showing that the application of deep thinking can require sacrifice. The Socratic thinker must therefore cultivate bravery, willing to stand by what reason reveals, no matter the cost. Dialogue is central to ethical living. By engaging others in reflection, debate, and shared inquiry, the Socratic thinker refines moral understanding and strengthens community bonds. Such conversation is not mere talk, but a vital method for testing ideas, challenging injustice, and building consensus. Ethical living in the modern world is fraught with complexity. The cacophony of competing values and rapid social change complicates the search for virtue. Socratic thinking offers guidance, persistent questioning, courageous action, and the unity of thought and deed. To apply philosophy to daily life, examine each decision through the lens of reason, justice, and goodness. Resist the temptation to compromise virtue for convenience, popularity, or gain. Foster dialogue on ethical matters with family, colleagues, and community. Commit to ongoing self-examination, recognizing the possibility of error and the need for growth. Socratic ethical living transforms philosophy from theory to practice, guiding the individual toward a life of integrity, virtue, and purpose. Chapter 14. The Socratic Method in Modern Times. The enduring relevance of the Socratic Method is evident in its continued application across disciplines, and it is particularly vital in the context of the modern era. As a systematic mode of questioning, reflection, and dialogue, the Socratic method remains a powerful tool for critical thinking, ethical inquiry, and personal growth, originating in the philosophical dialogues of ancient Athens. The Socratic method has now permeated education, law, science, and leadership. Its practice involves not only questioning but listening, inviting participants to clarify, defend, and reconsider their positions. In modern classrooms, for example, Socratic questioning encourages active engagement, dialogical learning, and the cultivation of independent thought. The method has particular pertinence in an age of information overload and ideological polarization. Socratic questioning challenges individuals to move beyond partisanship and superficiality, searching for nuance and precision. In law, it is the bedrock of cross-examination. In science, it underpins the testing of hypotheses. In leadership, it fosters ethical decision-making and adaptive problem-solving. The Socratic method also remains deeply relevant at a personal level. The rapid tempo of contemporary life threatens to erode both reflection and respect for complexity. Socratic inquiry pushes back, encouraging the slowing of thought, the opening of dialogue, and the pursuit of clarity amidst chaos. Implementing the Socratic method in modern times involves embracing several key strategies. Persistent questioning, refusing to accept surface-level answers or received wisdom. Dialogical engagement, treating conversation as mutual exploration, not mere contest. Intellectual humility, recognizing the limitations of knowledge and welcoming challenge. Systematic doubt, testing every concept for coherence, evidence, and consequence. These practices have the power to bridge divides, challenge dogma, and foster deeper understanding. At a societal level, the Socratic method encourages civility, skepticism, and wisdom, qualities urgently needed in an era of misinformation and division. For the individual, the Socratic method transforms ordinary thought into deep inquiry. It invites the reader to become not just a passive recipient of culture, but an active participant in the shaping of truth and virtue. Applying the Socratic method in modern times is therefore both a philosophical discipline and a moral imperative. Chapter 15: Reason versus Emotion. Finding the balance. The perennial tension between reason and emotion has been a central theme in philosophical discourse, and nowhere is this interplay more pivotal than in the Socratic tradition. For Socrates, the capacity to reason, to question, analyze, and evaluate was essential to the pursuit of the good life. At the same time, he recognized that human beings are not purely rational creatures. Emotions are powerful motivators that inform their experiences, values, and choices. The challenge, then, lies in harmonizing these two forces to foster sound judgment and authentic living. Reason, as Socrates understood, is the faculty that enables critical thinking and self-examination. Through dialectic and rigorous questioning, one can strip away the layers of preconceived notions, biases, and unexamined beliefs. Socratic reasoning is neither cold nor detached. It is rooted in a profound concern for truth and ethical conduct. It insists that clarity of thought be matched with moral purpose, and that every conviction be open to scrutiny. Emotion, conversely, infuses life with meaning, passion, and commitment. Socrates did not seek to eradicate emotion, nor did he deem it inherently inferior to reason. Rather, he advocated for the tempering of emotion by rational reflection. Emotions, when unchecked, can lead to impulsivity, partiality, or the distortion of reality. Yet when integrated thoughtfully with reason, they become allies in the cultivation of wisdom. The courage to face difficult truths, the compassion to understand others, and the resolve to pursue justice are all ennobled by emotion, channeled through rational inquiry. The balance between reason and emotion is not a static state, but an ongoing process. For the modern thinker, developing this balance entails mindful self-observation and intentional practice. The first step is awareness, recognizing the presence and influence of emotions in one's judgments. Techniques such as mindful reflection, pausing before reacting, questioning the motivations that underlie choices, and seeking clarity in moments of emotional turbulence embody the Socratic spirit. Moreover, dialogue plays an essential role. Engaging in honest, respectful conversation with others allows for the testing of ideas and the sharing of differing perspectives. Socratic dialogue is designed not as a contest, but as a collaborative search for truth. In this process, both reason and emotion shape the outcome. Reason guides the structure of inquiry, while emotion animates the values and motivations underlying the exchange. Examples abound in daily life. Consider decision-making in complex situations, such as ethical dilemmas or interpersonal conflicts. Reason might suggest a particular course of action based on evidence and principle, while emotion may challenge or reinforce that decision through empathy or personal attachment. The wise thinker seeks not to suppress emotion, but to interrogate its foundations. Is the emotion justified? Does it reflect a virtue worth pursuing? Is it clouding judgment, or is it illuminating aspects of the situation previously unseen? Socrates believed that virtues, courage, temperance, justice, wisdom, are the products of reason disciplined by emotion, and emotion refined by reason. To achieve balance, one must grapple with the ongoing internal dialogue between these faculties. Journaling, meditation, and reflective questioning are valuable practices that foster self-understanding and cognitive harmony. In the quest to think like Socrates, therefore, each thinker must undertake the lifelong project of integrating reason and emotion. This is not a pursuit of perfect balance. It is a dynamic, evolving conversation within the self. It is a journey towards self-mastery and ethical clarity, built on the understanding that reason and emotion in partnership are the twin foundations of the examined life. Chapter 16. Thinking for yourself in a conforming world. In every era, the pressure to conform has exerted a profound influence upon the formation of thought. From the subtle expectations of family and peers to the overt demands of culture and society, individuals face relentless forces that encourage uniformity in beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors. Socrates, whose commitment to independent thinking often placed him at odds with the conventions of his time, stands as a beacon for those who aspire to intellectual autonomy. Thinking for oneself is both a privilege and a responsibility. Socratic independence is not the mere rejection of the collective. Rather, it is the steadfast determination to examine, question, and validate one's beliefs before adopting them. It requires courage, the willingness to face disapproval, misunderstanding, or even hostility. Socrates endured ridicule, isolation, and ultimately death for refusing to surrender his principles to the crowd. His life demonstrates that true freedom is found not in the absence of external constraint, but in the mastery of one's own mind. The modern world presents new forms of conformity, magnified by technological advancement and social interconnectedness. Social media, information echo chambers, and the rapid proliferation of opinion can seduce the thinker into passivity and acceptance. Algorithms curate news, popularity shapes discourse, and dissent becomes marginalized. The challenge is to retain the inner space necessary for independent thought. Cultivating Socratic independence begins with the discipline of questioning. The Socratic Method, asking penetrating questions that expose contradictions, assumptions, and gaps, fosters intellectual resilience. One learns to distinguish between what is known and what is merely believed, and to trace opinions to their origins. This method is invaluable in confronting prevalent narratives and resisting the allure of easy consensus. Self-examination must be paired with openness. Socratic thinkers are committed to dialogue. They seek out disagreement, welcome correction, and value the diversity of viewpoints. Rather than defending their own positions as unassailable, they remain receptive to new information and willing to revise beliefs. This openness is not weakness, but strength, a refusal to be governed by pride or dogma. The obstacles to independent thinking are manifold. Fear of isolation, desire for acceptance, and aversion to conflict can subvert autonomy. Socrates faced such obstacles and overcame them not by withdrawing from society, but by engaging it vigorously and holding himself accountable to reason. The examined life, in his view, was not solitary. It was conducted in relationship to others within the context of a community. The key is to participate actively without being subsumed, to connect without losing oneself. Practical steps can aid the modern reader in this endeavor. Establishing routines of reflective solitude, such as daily contemplation, reading widely, and maintaining a critical journal, helps to clarify personal convictions. Seeking diverse sources of information and cultivating friendships across ideological divides broaden perspective. Engaging respectfully with disagreement and practicing intellectual humility strengthens resolve. To think for oneself is to be alive in the deepest sense. It is to experience the world through one's own consciousness, rather than through the borrowed scripts of others. Socratic independence is not isolationist or antisocial. It is the foundation of genuine participation and meaningful contribution. In the conforming world, it is both the antidote to stagnation and the engine of progress, fueling the ongoing dialogue between society and the insightful individual. Chapter 17: The Pursuit of Wisdom Over Knowledge. In an age that prizes information, the distinction between knowledge and wisdom is often blurred. Socrates insisted that wisdom is not equivalent to the possession of facts or skills. Rather, it is the capacity to discern what truly matters, to align thought with virtue, and to live in accordance with truth. "I know that I know nothing," Socrates famously declared, a paradoxical admission that reveals the depth of his commitment to wisdom. Knowledge, in the modern sense, consists of data, theories, and skills acquired through education and experience. It is valuable, even indispensable, in navigating the practicalities of life. Yet it is insufficient for guiding moral action, resolving existential questions, or fostering human flourishing. Wisdom arises when knowledge is subjected to reflection, context, and ethical consideration. Socrates did not disparage knowledge. He sought to transcend it. Through relentless inquiry, he urged his interlocutors to move beyond the accumulation of facts and toward the cultivation of self-knowledge. This process entails recognizing the limits of one's understanding, questioning the foundations of beliefs, and striving for intellectual humility. The wise person is not the one with all the answers, but the one who knows which questions to ask and who acknowledges ignorance where it exists. Wisdom is characterized by perspective, the ability to weigh competing values, foresee consequences, and make balanced judgments. Socrates exemplified this by refusing to be swayed by popular opinion or transient emotions. He engaged with others in pursuit of truth, emphasizing the importance of living a life directed by reasoned principle rather than mere convention. The pursuit of wisdom requires virtues that knowledge alone cannot confer. Chief among these is humility, the recognition that every viewpoint is partial and every theory contingent. Alongside humility is courage, the willingness to challenge deeply held assumptions and to embrace discomfort in the pursuit of understanding. Patience is also essential, for wisdom unfolds over time. Through sustained reflection and dialogue, contemporary society offers unprecedented access to information, yet often lacks the frameworks for transforming knowledge into wisdom. Education systems, workplaces, and media prioritize the transmission of facts. Rarely do they encourage the kind of contemplative inquiry that Socrates championed. The Socratic pursuit of wisdom requires intentional effort, prioritizing depth over breadth, substance over surface, and meaning over utility. Practical strategies for cultivating wisdom abound. One must set aside time for silent reflection, seek out mentors and philosophical guides, and expose oneself to the writings and ideas of diverse thinkers. Studying history and literature illuminates the complexity of human experience, offering lessons in empathy and perspective. Participating in philosophical dialogue, asking why and to what end, sharpens discernment and fosters maturity. Ultimately, the pursuit of wisdom is a lifelong commitment to growth. It entails continual re-examination of one's beliefs, openness to revision, and dedication to living with integrity. Socrates' legacy is not the doctrine he left behind, but the example he set, a ceaseless striving for excellence and authenticity. To prioritize wisdom over knowledge is to honor the highest calling of the human mind, to unite understanding with virtue in the service of the examined life. Chapter 18. Living an Examined Life, Socrates' Final Lesson. Socrates' death is one of the most stirring moments in philosophical history, emblematic of the cost and the courage of living an examined life. His refusal to flee or recant his beliefs, despite the threat of execution, underscores the profundity of his commitment. The examined life is not a mere intellectual exercise. It is a path of integrity sustained through adversity. The examined life, as articulated by Socrates, comprises a relentless commitment to self-awareness, ethical reflection, and the pursuit of truth. It demands the questioning of habitual behaviors, social norms, and personal assumptions. Socrates challenged his fellow Athenians to look beyond the superficialities of status and reputation, focusing instead on character and virtue. In his final days, Socrates modeled the examined life through dialogue and composure. Rather than railing against fate, he used his trial and imprisonment as opportunities for philosophical inquiry. He conversed with friends and foes alike, dissecting arguments and probing the foundations of justice, courage, and piety. Even in the shadow of death, Socrates maintained serenity, a testament to the harmony between thought and life. The lessons of Socrates' final days speak powerfully to the modern reader. The examined life is not devoid of suffering or uncertainty. Rather, it provides a framework for transcending them. Through reflection, individuals can confront fears, face mortality, and cultivate resilience. Socratic examination fosters inner harmony, enabling one to navigate turmoil with grace and steadiness. Integral to this process is the practice of daily reflection. Socratic thinkers set aside time to ponder their actions, scrutinize motivations, and evaluate outcomes. They ask themselves, have I pursued virtue today? Did I act according to my principles? Did I seek out truth, even when it was uncomfortable? Such inquiry is not self-indulgent. It is the crucible of growth. The examined life also extends outward, enhancing relationships and communities. Dialogue based on mutual respect, openness, and the pursuit of understanding deepens connections. Socratic examination elevates conversation above mere exchange, transforming it into shared discovery. The benefits ripple outward. Families, workplaces, and societies shaped by the collective quest for insight and virtue. Societies flourish when individuals aspire to the examined life. Transparency, civic engagement, and moral leadership depend upon it. The alternative, unthinking conformity, cynicism, or indifference, erodes the foundations of trust and progress. To live an examined life is a revolutionary act, requiring courage, honesty, and persistence. Socrates' final lesson is not merely the story of one man's end, but an invitation to every reader to take up the challenge of self-examination, pursuing wisdom and virtue in every circumstance. It is the legacy of a life lived deeply and authentically, and the enduring promise of philosophy to those bold enough to question and grow. Chapter 19, Becoming a Modern Philosopher, Applying Socratic Thinking Today. The transition from ancient philosophy to the modern world presents both challenges and opportunities. Socratic thinking, characterized by questioning, dialogue, and self-examination, remains remarkably relevant, offering individuals a roadmap for navigating the complexities of contemporary life. To become a modern philosopher is to adapt timeless principles to new contexts, employing them as tools for personal growth, ethical clarity, and societal engagement. Modern societies are defined by rapid change, uncertainty, and diversity of belief. The information age amplifies both the reach and the risk of ideas. Socratic thinking equips individuals to decipher the noise, identify the substantive issues, and engage in reasoned deliberation. At its core, this approach demands intellectual humility, the readiness to revise opinions, admit ignorance, and seek improvement. One foundational practice is the cultivation of critical questioning. Socrates challenged his interlocutors to justify their ideas, uncover assumptions, and explore consequences. Modern philosophers apply similar techniques in analyzing news, evaluating policies, and making personal decisions. Asking, "Why do I believe this?" or "What is the evidence?" fosters discernment and inoculates against manipulation. Dialogue remains essential. Socratic conversations are marked by civility, curiosity, and a mutual desire for truth. In professional environments, this approach transforms meetings from adversarial contests into opportunities for joint problem-solving. In personal life, it deepens intimacy by inviting reflection and empathy. The ethical dimensions of Socratic thinking are particularly vital. Socrates viewed philosophy as a way of life, not merely an intellectual pursuit. Modern philosophers seek to integrate their insights into daily conduct, choosing careers with purpose, treating others with respect, and confronting injustice wherever they find it. The commitment to virtue, even when difficult, distinguishes Socratic excellence. Obstacles to Socratic thinking are real. The pace of modern life, the pressure to conform, and the prevalence of distraction can undermine philosophical inquiry. Practical strategies include setting aside protected time for reading, reflection, and dialogue, minimizing distractions, and prioritizing quality over quantity in one's intellectual pursuits. Technology, paradoxically, offers both risks and opportunities. While it can foster superficiality, it can also connect thinkers across boundaries and expose individuals to diverse perspectives. Active engagement rather than passive consumption is the key, participating in thoughtful online forums, attending philosophical discussions, and sharing insights with others. Finally, the modern philosopher recognizes the importance of community. Socrates flourished through engagement with others, and contemporary thinkers can find support and inspiration in like-minded groups, academic societies, or informal circles. The examined life is a shared endeavor, enriched by collective pursuit and mutual accountability. To apply Socratic thinking today is to live deliberately, to question assumptions, pursue wisdom, engage in dialogue, and strive for virtue. It is a powerful antidote to confusion, anxiety, and superficiality, empowering individuals to carve meaning and clarity out of the ambiguity of the modern world. The Socratic tradition endures as a living guide, inviting each of us to become philosophers in our own right. If you found this video helpful, inspiring, or entertaining, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on future content. Your support means the world. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.